Another great content creator and friend of the channel is Slandered Gaming. He focuses primarily on CRPGs but also covers a lot of generalist news in the gaming space, and one that I highly recommend. However, why I'm talking about him today is a video that he did about 3 months back about the rankings in 1.5 for Origins. In this video, he put Astra Militarum Commander as the bottom ranked Origin, which was something quite shocking for me when Noble and Crime Lord exist. In the past, I've been known for getting into debates and arguments over people that I felt like have put out misinformation. However, that's not what's happening with Slandered here. Slandered has actually put out a very good video, and his reasoning is absolutely sound. The only thing I disagree is the placement. There is nothing in his video that I would consider wrong or misleading, so I want to make that very clear before I go on to it. The main thing that I have is, I think he's just really underestimated how powerful Regimental Tactics is and what you can do with it. Now, you might look at this and think that you can probably only really use this on an officer build, but Regimental Tactics is also very good for not just an officer but a soldier and even a blade dancer. Some could argue you could even use this on a warrior, though that isn't my favourite option, and the only one that I've really struggled to make much use out of it with is going on to operative, but you can still use Voidborn and do that absolutely fine. Not only is the buff just something that's okay, this isn't too much what I'm focused on, it's the secondary effect that has some really unforeseen consequences, as it may seem. This is that damaging abilities from your allies don't affect each other. Besides Blade Dancer's self-damaging that recently got changed, this means that normal abilities that would cost yourself health don't take effect and you become immune to that self-damage. This means things like Bloody Pact, the dagger that you get in DLC 1, you can use to generate infinite AP. You can also use it with other self-damaging weapons like the Thornclave, but more importantly, it means that you can also just abuse overcharge shots on, say, Pascal with the plasma rifles, because those self-damages don't hurt you. But some of the other really powerful things that come in here, now, whilst having use of trench warfare to increase your own las fire is quite good, the one that I really want to focus on is Field of Fire. So whilst the Astra Militarum Commander is under the Regimental Tactics effects, all their allies gain 5% to rate of fire for every attack they have made since the start of the effect. This includes the whole party, and this applies not only to burst weapons, but also rock swords. So I'm going to show off some examples of just some of the ridiculous things that you can do with this, and I'm only going to use early game rather than trying to show off end game. For the purpose of testing, I have set up a officer AMC that has gone into Grand Strategist, and I'm going to be using Regimental Tactics and giving Cabela an extra turn to show off what can really happen here. Now, I can shoot some of these enemies myself, which will then give Cabela the damage buff, and she doesn't therefore have to attack them multiple times, because the first attack sets up what is essentially a debuff to then get additional damage on your follow-up attacks. But one of the things I can notice here is if I give Cabela a bring it down, she can now absolutely spam a Bloody Pact for absolutely no cost and just start building AP. So I don't have Medal of Alacrity, so she started with 2 AP, but now she can just freely abuse Crimson Rage to get a lot of AP. It was previously believed by even myself that you could then use something like Blood Oath, but no, unfortunately that does still take damage. The other thing I did notice whilst abusing Bloody Pact was yeah, it actually procs the life regen of the self-damage ring that gives you +1 from Blood Drinker. So that was something that was quite interesting, but yeah, not as OP as some people had actually previously believed, because obviously you can't infinitely use Blood Oath. But with all these buffs, you are going to be quite well set up for just having Cabela sort of clear the battlefield. It would be nice if this did still apply to Blood Oath, but I think when they fixed it so assassin damage didn't get self-enhanced by it, I think that was around the time that obviously you stopped being able to use this for Astra Militarum Commander. But it's still perfectly usable and perfectly easy to get into the right setup with it. And just being able to freely abuse the AP is something that is really, really nice. Obviously, even the self-damaging effects that you'll probably be seeing coming in for something like the Relic Augment, yeah, that's not going to apply any damage to me, and I am going to be able to just freely use Cabela's abilities to heal with other talents to just keep the health up, so it does make it a little bit more easy to use her how you do want to use. There are going to be some other setups that we'll be able to show with this as well, but Yeah, no, so this is what people consider the most standard use of it, which is going to be like throwing it onto a Grand Strategist, giving out easy party buffs, and obviously all the attacks here are going to be building up a rate of fire for other allies. So Cabela being a Blade Dancer is absolutely perfect for this, because as she goes around and makes multiple attacks going beyond the limit, this will be stacking up quite a few things for the allies, and yeah, it's all going to come together very, very nicely. You can also use stuff like, I've put on a item for Cabela that allows her for the first use of stim to be practically free, and because I can just freely boost up AP, I can use all the stims that give me additional attack economy for, well, basically free, because like having those abilities to just have so much AP to be able to generate is going to be fairly easy for me to abuse. As I mentioned as well, this means that Pascal can use stuff like the Ballistic Calculator augment to not worry about hurting allies, as well as just being able to freely spam overcharge shots, because the explosion that will be caused on that won't hurt Pascal himself, but he could use this to offensively hurt enemies by just getting into their face and causing explosions. However, if I just set myself up here and show off a little bit, I'm going to take overcharge shot at this enemy. Obviously, even if it overpens, it's not going to hit Heinrichs who's behind him. If I generate myself a little bit more AP by killing something with Claim the Bounty here, I'll be able to use that additional AP to also fire off another overcharge shot, and as you can see, when it explodes, it won't do anything nasty to Pascal himself. So I'll even be able to freely add on Cole the Bold here. So yes, being able to just constantly spam overcharge shots is going to be something that is quite nice, and as you can see, Plasma Explosion doing 0. Normally that would have one-shot Pascal himself, but because of this little setup, we're not going to see that. Another one to keep in mind is for Warrior, this essentially during Daring Breach gives them infinite attack economy, because as long as they're killing, they'll be producing AP and they'll be able to constantly move. So on a separate version of this encounter, I've gone to Heinrichs, and as you can see, he can get those 0 AP, well, sorry, 0 health costing AP generation increases, and we can use this quite nicely. And as long as we then proc Daring Breach, we have an infinite attacks, because whilst Finest Hour has a limit of 10, but I believe you can normally get to around 12 attacks anyway. But the limit is hard-coded for 10, whereas for Daring Breach, there is no limit. So my Heinrichs here is set up to be able to put on 2 fire dots on himself because he's using the Zarkov armor, and then I can put on Inflame just to get his damage going up. If I use stuff like the Swashbuckler's Cloak, we could increase the damage even more on that. There's quite a few ways that you can optimize this build, but this isn't about Heinrichs there. This is more about showing off what AMC is adding here. So I'm going to be taking 0 damage from any of those explosions. I've put on the Relic Arms, even though Heinrichs doesn't need them because he's got Biophysical Distortion. But as you can see, he can freely get around here and do so without causing any issues or trouble here. So I've run out of attack economy before I've run out of AP, but as long as I then click Finest Hour or even just stack Daring Breach, yeah, still not going to have any issues. So because I've gone Finest Hour, it's reset all my abilities, and I can just get back that AP that I previously had. By being able to reuse these abilities as well, especially in Flame, we're going to be able to stack up even more damage, and we're going to be able to get more uses out of Breakthrough. Now, the Abhorrent had already been Breakthrough once. Because I have Inertia Boots on Heinrichs, I'm also generating MP on crits. Naturally, I also have the stims on here, because I've just given it to Finest Hour. They now don't cost a thing. We'll show off what else you can do with AMC. I'll show off a Master Tactician version, and I'll probably show off a Soldier version. I'm not going to show off the Blade Dance version because it would require too much setup for the video. But the Blade Dance version will be able to help pick up Rock Swords. We'll show off Rock Sword on our good friend Abelard as well. So yes, now if I click Daring Breach, I essentially have infinite attacks. As long as I make kills, I will be able to generate MP, and as long as I have MP, I'll be able to just freely attack everything. So as you can see here, we're just building up a boat ton of AP, and now we can just freely go around and smack everything. And because we've clicked Daring Breach, yeah, infinite attack economy. The damage is not even the best because I haven't stacked buffs as much as I could have done, but yeah, when you have infinite attacks, you don't need to. We can do death by 1,000 cuts. So Heinrichs here has now just run out of the slash charges. That's fine. We've got Veil Render, so as long as we're still getting crits, we can get some really big damage boosts here. And as each hit crits, it will increase the Veil degradation, which therefore increases the damage of those crits. So yes, for... I think, I can't remember the level that we are here. But yeah, even here, this is going to be something that you're going to find quite useful. So yep, Heinrichs can just freely flow around this battlefield and just pick off everything. But you can obviously do the same by enhancing Argenta. You can enhance Abelard with rock swords, because obviously the field of fire will be kicking in there. And any warriors, yeah, infinite attacks to just come back and freely pick off things. Making a quick little swap over to Abelard here, I have put in a secondary rock saw. Now, I haven't set up Abelard to have bloody packs, because obviously that's over on Heinrichs, and we're still in that same encounter. But we do have access to a very easy tearing breach we built up so more. But his 4 attack rock saw is now going to make 8 attacks because of field of fire. So we've been able to build up quite a few extra attacks here. So as you can see, yeah, this heavy emergency cutter, which is normally 4 attacks, is now going to do 8 attacks. And because we can just easily pick up Tearing Breach, again, he can now fly around the battlefield, just stacking up MP, kills, damage, etc, etc, etc. And obviously each one of those 8 attacks is doing 100 damage. So yeah, so Act 2 throwing out 800 damage, pretty good. As we come into a different build, this is going to be the Officer Master Tactician version. Enemies have gone first, and I've got Strong Point on here instead of Further. If you actually look at the spreadsheet, I do use... Further before Strong Point, but that doesn't matter too much. So I'm going to pop on Linchpin onto Argenta here. I'm going to pop on Inspire as well, and then we're just going to give it sort of the officer rotation and just let her take it from there. This is very good for either buffing yourself or buffing allies, especially being an officer that way. And by activating Regimental Tactics, she will start exceptionally increasing her own attack economy. So I could take on just a little burst shot just so I've put another attack in motion, and then I can bring it down to her and then go from there. As you see, even my officer who didn't receive any buffs, his damage isn't too bad, because if I'd been in cover, I would have had even more shots than that. So yep, Argenta, I haven't even put on Medal of Alacrity, I forgot to do that, but I do have a stim on here just so I can get sort of AP to show off what I wanted to do here. So she is going to activate Revel Slaughter, because she did have a main turn before this, because yeah, I'm not using Grand Strategist at all in this encounter for this little bit that we're demonstrating here. So every one of her attacks is going to start helping build up her attack economy. I've also been able to get enough kills to be able to generate Finest Hour, which is something nice. And as you can see, we have 4 animations on, because I don't currently have sped up animations turned on. But if we look at her Heavy Bolter, currently base rate of fire is 9, so when we put on that rapid fire, we can build that up even more. And every attack is going to slowly increase her rate of fire. So the more turns we stack, the more damage she'll do, the more zeal she'll build, and yeah, it's just going to be quite exceptional. So in this one, we'll be able to use Run and Gun. You can put multiple stims on there if you want to really stack it. The problem that Soldier has is early on, she can't really generate MP unless I also put Inertia Boots on her, which I could have done for the purpose of a showcase, but I didn't want to. One thing I do want to point out is Flamers still bloody suck with stairs. The devs really need to fix the sort of what stairs do when you're trying to use your rate of fire weapons. Anyway, her base rate of fire is now 10. So we can wildfire that, and we can also rapid fire that, so that can be quite useful with the boss here. Now, it only goes up to 18 rapid fire, not to 20, because it only takes the base rate of fire into consideration. However, where the rate of fire currently is will be useful for Firearm Mastery. So that will keep increasing as we're making kills and going on. And if you say Firearm Mastery for later with Blessed Bolt Casing, all of those single shots are auto-hit. So if I do use that attack economy first to obviously make some more attacks, the more attacks that we use will also build up more rate of fire. So those 10 single shot attacks will also start to help boost rate of fire over time. Yeah, there's not too much is going to survive here to be able to show off it anymore. But in longer encounters or encounters we have to take a lot more attacks, it'll be more useful, such as the Trazen encounter. Now, every build that I've shown in this is going to be on the spreadsheet link down below. So the Trench Strategist, Company Commander, and From the Front have been shown. Now, if I go back to my soldier, who is now using Regimental Tactics for himself, and he's had some buffs from Cassia, yeah, we're going to be showing off what he can do by increasing his own rate of fire. Now, if I get into full cover, that will increase my amount of shots that I can take, which is going to be something that is going to be very useful. So this 8 rate of fire gets the initial base 5, which goes on top of that, 8 whilst, so it's base rate of fire 5. Whilst we're in cover, we can get even more from that. And as we make more attacks, we're slowly going to start seeing increases to our rate of fire. Las and AMC get a lot of additional attacks, especially with field of fire in play. And all of your attacks will slowly build for that count as well as going through your allied stuff. So if you're taking extra turns to get this up initially, and then you're going through all your allies across the battlefield, and then coming back to yourself, then yeah, you are going to build up quite a bit of attack economy this way. I probably should shield stims more, because stuff like Scorcher, you are getting renewables of those, and they really do help increase your attack economy. It's been very helpful for operatives as well as any other builds and setup that use them. And if we use this, when we come back to Castle, we can just pop a buff on the ally, and then we can finest out back to ourselves. So as we do that, we've currently got up to rate of fire 9 from what is standard rate of fire for weapon. This is also tactical backpacks in play here, and when we rapid fire, because we're stacking extra turns, we get a lot of extra attack on me because we're playing Fortress World on this build, and you will slowly build it. A lot of the Act 3 and Act 4 las rifles do get a little bit crazy. The Marspan and the Hotshot that you'll see in Act 2 might not feel as overpowered as, say, the Heavy Bolter, but that is a heavy gun, so it probably shouldn't be. And as you can see, I also have the focal emitter on here. Now, the focal emitter, I don't know if that will help count for field of fire. I don't think it does, but that does remain to be seen. One of the issues that I actually found here was needing to reload so much, because we're making so many attacks that I was constantly having to go through it, even on a las weapon. So if I was using a bolter, I probably would have run out of AP very, very quickly. But yeah, those follow-up laser shots, they're doing a lot of damage. They're actually doing more because of the buffs that we've got on here, because of the damage scales of the buffs. The single shots follow-up on my las rifle, yeah, it's actually more effective. But we will take a reload here. We'll see where the current rate of fire has managed to build up to. Again, I'm using stims for the sake of the showcase. This is just to help sort of show off moving around and the ease of doing that. You do want to try and keep at least one part of you into full cover. As far as I'm aware, the leg augments to increase your cover rate doesn't apply to this. However, I don't know if it would say stack with the Overseer Skull. That I'll leave for other people to test and find out. But as we can see, we've made many attacks here. I probably are going to want to be reloading at some point here, so I can just show off where our current rate of fire is. But we could also then have other allies that are going to take their turn. So an Argenta in the party would also have more attack on me. Any Rockstars would also have, well, not attack on me, sorry, but rate of fire. And this is something that will scale very nicely as you go on through. So there is a lot that you can do with it, and I would argue that this is just far better than what Crime Lord or even Noble adds to the party, let alone themselves, whereas you will see a lot more from AMC, be it if you want to go Officer, Master Tactician, or Officer Grand Strategist, or even go the route of going in Soldier for either Master Tactician, Bounty Hunter, or even for Arc Militant. And like I said, you can use this on Blade Dancer. The trick is, the more attacks you make, the more it helps yourself in the party. So a Blade Dancer using 2 swords with a secondary Rock Saw, yeah, you're going to see that in your Blade Dancers, you're going to see that in your Rock Saw, and it will also boost allies. And yeah, when you use this right, you will build up a lot of buffs and stacks here. Now, whilst I wouldn't argue that this is better than Navy Officer, because Navy Officer is an exceptionally powerful origin now, especially having access to Get Off Me, Stentorian Voice, being able to use it with Fleet Combat Training being one of the best talents in the game, it's definitely not the bottom. Now, argument, I had previously said I thought Armistice was probably A tier, right up there with Psyker, but I would say after the 1.5 buffs, I probably wouldn't align it with that anymore. Arbiter is probably a good solid B tier. I'd probably put this in the same, especially if you're going to put Navy Officer in the A tier and then Psyker is going to be your S tier, because it's just that much more exceptionally powerful. But the bottom of the barrel is definitely Noble and Crime Lord. They absolutely do need reworks, and this isn't even discussing some of the other potentials that we can have here. Commissar, still one of my favorites. I would say Astra Militarum Commander and Commissar are two of my favorite runs right now, but Navy Officer is probably still better, but a lot of people don't like playing Navy Officer because it overlaps with Abelard. So realistically, if you're going to want to play a face for your party, or if you also want to be a soldier because you don't really mind about competing with Argenta because she can go heavy guns, then yeah, you're probably going to want to look at something like an Astra Militarum Commander, or potentially even just going for a Commissar. But I will be looking to cover builds on this later. I didn't want to sneak a build video into this because it's only 20 minutes, but let me know how your thoughts are on what the rankings of the Origins are below. I haven't actually done a video on that myself, but I might have to do a video just sort of covering how effective different homeworlds are, as well as some of the other Origins. But like I said, there's a lot you can do with it. Bliss Calculator becomes very useful. Plasma guns become very useful because you're not going to accidentally wipe out your own allies. And you don't have to worry about any sort of friendly fire. So it really does unleash Argenta, unleashes Capella, unleashes Heinrichs, unleashes Abelard. And there are a lot of things you can abuse with it. There are more abuses that you have, but obviously I'm not trying to get Astra Militarum Commander nerfed or anything. Till next time, I've been Reverend619, and I will see you all in the next video.